So here we are in Vegas. We're at the CrossFit Culmination in sunny Vegas.
Very sunny.
That's why we're wearing sunglasses.
Yeah.
We got, we're right by the airport, so you might hear some planes coming in and out, but it's a lot quieter here than inside. So, Underdogs Athletics.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
With an S.
With an S, because it's plural. There's more than one Underdog.
That's right. It's true.
Coming into the season, there was all the talk about training camps, and you had one of the premier, or still have, one of the premier camps coming into the season. A great stable of athletes. You had the West Coast Classic. You had the first, second, and third finishers, and Bethany, Kari, and Danielle Brandon. So going into the games, you had a game plan. You being their coach, what was the game plan going into the games with those three athletes? You coaching top 10 caliber athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I think, our preparation was really, really solid going in. Coming off a West Coast Classic, it was a tough turnaround. Mm-hmm. How close, the last semifinal weekend to then the games 5 weeks later. Yeah. So we had to be really smart with our preparation, but I felt like we were in a good spot with everyone. And obviously, once we got there, there were things that were out of our control that happened. But yeah, man, it was a bummer because I really felt like we had the opportunity to have three athletes, that finished in the top 10, and then we saw what happened.
Yeah, so what happened is, obviously, those who don't know, Kari and Bethany, they fell into that COVID protocol. They tested positive, but you still had another athlete out there.
Yeah.
So you obviously had to change your game plan. You had two, potential podium athletes sitting at home in quarantine, and then you had another potential podium athlete competing without her teammates. So talk about what you had to do. How you had to change your coaching philosophy to one, keep Danielle Brandon together and to keep the eyes on the prize, as they say.
So obviously, we were heartbroken for Kari and Bethany, who I felt like at the time were in peak form.
Yes.
Both really had the opportunity, like you said, I think to push for the podium. And when the news came out, we were all crushed. And I think Danielle too.
Yes.
I think the fact that one, it was the unknown of oh no, is this going to happen to me? Mm-hmm. But also, I think she felt almost like survivor's guilt.
Yes.
Where it was like, why me, right? Mm-hmm. Like Kari and Bethany do all the right things, they prepare so well, and how come this is happening to them and it's not fair? Mm-hmm. And I think part of it was me, one, saying to her, listen, it's not your fault, right?
Yeah.
And secondly, I think where we started, at the beginning of the week, and then once the first day started, it was very different. It was at that point, it was like whatever she needs emotionally to be able to stay as level-headed as possible throughout the competition. It wasn't about X's and O's anymore. Mm-hmm. It wasn't about strategy on each workout. Yeah. It was about, what can I give Danielle? What does she need emotionally? Mm-hmm. Is it just a shoulder to cry on? Is it someone to be supportive? It's not about strategy anymore.
Yeah.
Because she's getting tested 2 to 3 times a day. She's in isolation. She's not able to be with the rest of the athletes. It was a really different circumstance, and nothing that I had ever experienced as a coach, and nothing that she had ever experienced as an athlete. So it was uncharted territory, and I think, but as far as like a bonding experience for the two of us, it was huge. I would go out on a limb to say that nobody had more adversity than the two of us that week. Yeah. And we were able to get through it, and I thought she did incredibly well. And I think it was a testament to her as an athlete, and also a testament to our bond as coach and athlete.
Yeah.
So I felt very proud of her and proud of the way that we were able to get through it and respond in a very challenging situation.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like you became a mindset coach more than you became an actual, coach.
Yeah, like that week for sure.
Yeah, and especially coming off the 2020 games where it was just you and Kari, and you had a different set of circumstances. So just like athletes, coaches actually, you have to be prepared for the unknown and unknowable just as much as the athletes.
Yeah.
So here we are. We're end of the season. We're starting to ramp up for the off season.
Yeah.
We got Rogue right around the corner.
Yeah.
Obviously, your athletes are they're getting invites left and right. How are you training them? I mean, how are those athletes? How are you preparing them, especially after the games, a layoff? I mean, for the last 5 years, it seems like the off season's always been different.
I know.
So now we have something. It seems like something normal. So how do you adjust that? How do the athletes adjust that?
Every athlete has their own process, so everyone's a little bit different. Danielle needed time off after the game.
Sure.
No question.
Yeah.
I mean, not just physically, she had some nagging injuries, but I think emotionally, it was just such an emotional week that I was basically like, hey, take as much time as you need. I'm not going to pressure you to get back in the gym. Yeah. When you are ready, you let me know. So, she's just kind of coming back in, and right now she's scheduled to do Rogue, and I think for her it's more looking at it like that'll be something fun to do, something to look forward to. But really, in the scheme of the season, we're just getting back into it, right? Now, Kari, obviously, different set of circumstances. Kari didn't get to compete at the games, so it was kind of like this anticlimactic end. There was really no end to the season. And obviously she had to deal with some symptoms from COVID, and but she's been back in the gym for a while now, and I feel like Kari will be peaking, at Rogue, and she's almost looking at it like her games, right? Like the continuation of the 2021 season, right? Not the 2022, not the beginning of the 2022 season. Bethany had more severe symptoms from COVID, took a little bit longer to recover, and so she's going to push off. She declined going to Rogue, and we're looking at Wadapalooza for her. Now, Tola's going to, I think, end up doing Dubai. Big Matt had Filthy 150 in his sights, but obviously that competition unfortunately got canceled. So we're probably looking at Wadapalooza, the qualifiers coming up for him as well. So we're picking and choosing where we think it fits best in the season for people, but really with the idea that these competitions are great, but they're really tune-ups for what's coming for the 2022 season.
You talk about the preparation, obviously coaching, programming, all that comes in. Talk about your philosophy when it comes to, programming for not just high caliber athletes, but you have athletes of different abilities, different strengths and weaknesses. But how do you program so that way you're hitting all those, or they're going to be the most well-rounded athlete whenever it's time to peak? How do you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, the way we look at programming for our individual athletes is obviously, going to be a little bit different than say the programming template, right? Because the template, we're just trying to be as comprehensive as possible. We want to make sure that we're covering strength cycles. We want to make sure we're covering, the skill work that needs to be done, the monostructural conditioning. Our big philosophy is engines win championships. So we're always going to gear towards a ton of conditioning and long aerobic work. But depending on where we are in the season, the Metcons might look a little bit different. As we get closer to the Open, there's going to be some more open prep, right? As we get ready for semifinal season, you'll see a little bit harder and more skilled workouts. And then game season's very different with grunt work and a lot of the strongman stuff. But our individuals are all very different, right? So we're big believers in making sure that we're attacking weaknesses. So we want to make sure at this point of the season, we evaluate kind of how they've done in competitions. How did we do in the semifinals? What the games look like? And where can we attack what we need to attack and make sure that we're bringing those weaknesses up to the ability that we can manage workouts the best when they come up in competitions, right? The worst thing that happens in a competition is something comes up and you're like, oh gosh, this is bad. We want to get to the point where we look at something we're like, fine, no problems, right? We can manage that. We can maximize our points, and then it's going to allow us to play to our strengths in other workouts so that we're going to be able at the end of a weekend to say, okay, we had to manage these 2 workouts, but these 4 or 5 workouts fell into our wheelhouse, and we're going to really be able to maximize there so that we're not getting a 27th or a 30th on the workout. So that's really what we're doing right now, is focusing hard on trying to maximize, or really work on those weaknesses and goats so that when it comes to season, we don't have those anymore.
Yeah, makes sense. When you talk about the individual, obviously, there was a tweet from your partner, Tommy, where he kind of mentioned something about the affiliate cup. Talk about, how is it possible? Or obviously Mayhem is they're at the top. So, I mean, is it possible for, say, an Underdogs to put together a team, or how hard would it be to put together a team in this current environment that topples something like someone like Mayhem?
Well, listen, I mean, Mayhem has set the standard.
Sure.
And, but I think as a coach, as a competitor, just seeing how lopsided it was this year, it does. And I come from a team background,
sure,
right?
Yep.
We had a lot of really good teams at Dynamics. We finished in the top 5 twice. And coming from team background with the Brawlers and the Grid League, we won a couple championships. It does make me wanna,
sure,
and obviously Tommy being with the Underdogs family now, the two of us kind of look at each other and say, hey, could we put something together to challenge Mayhem? And I think, in the back of our minds, and it's something that we've thought about, I think that there's a high probability that we're going to try to put something together. It has to work out with the athletes. It has to work out with the fact now that everyone has to be in-house.
Exactly.
But I would not be surprised to see us try to put together an Underdogs team that's very competitive. So we're talking about it. We've still got a couple months, but don't be surprised if that's something that we try to do.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. But you heard it here. Earlier this week, there was a big announcement about Ricky.
Yeah.
Ricky Garard joining the Underdogs family. Talk about how did that happen? I mean, did you reach out to him? Did he reach out to you? Talk about the background of that.
Yeah, so I did a podcast, during last season, honestly, where at Coffee Pods and Watson, and Peter had asked me about, who might you be interested in coaching, or who, and it was funny, is it's kind of on the spot. I talked a little bit about Ricky and the fact that I felt like I could be a good mentor for him, and I'd never spoken to him before, honestly, and Ricky reached out to me, and I think he had heard that, or maybe even some of his friends had reached out and said that. But Ricky reached out to me and really hat in hand, kind of talking about how he was at a crossroads, that he was following template training, that he had spoken to a few coaches that, he really hadn't had any luck over the past few years as far as people wanting to work with him. And honestly, I spoke to him over a period of months. We spoke several times and, really had some super honest conversations, where I felt like, he was kind of at his wit's end, really like thinking to himself, like, there's really not a lot of people that want to help me. And you're not feeling bad for him, let's be honest. He put himself in that situation.
Exactly.
It wasn't under my watch. And I did my homework and spoke to some people that I'm close to, who I trust, who know Ricky, and who said, hey, listen, we really think he's a good kid who made a mistake. And I had a conversation with Ricky, and I said, listen, I feel like I could be a good mentor for you. I believe in second chances, but it's got to be my way, 100% my way. I think he's taking responsibility. He understands that, he can redeem himself, but only if he's very contrite, and only if he understands that, hey, like, I screwed up and I accept it, and now I've got to prove that I can do things the right way. And, I really think that we're going to be able to get him on a path of redemption. And whether people or not, they want to forgive him, that's up to them. There's going to be some people that don't, and that's fine. They have every right to their opinion. But he served his time.
He did. 4
years, right? That's a long time. It's kind of unprecedented to have someone who's been that successful who then comes back. And I'm really interested. I'm as interested as anybody else. I get to see his numbers, right? And I get to see what he does in his program, and it's impressive. I can't wait to get him in person, to get him to come to Las Vegas and train with our crew. And, I think he's willing and ready to do all the right things to prove that he's a different person. And I can't wait for that. So I'm excited, honestly, and I'm optimistic that he's going to do things the right way, and he's going to represent himself. He's going to represent our family and our brand very well. So I think it's going to be an interesting season.